Hey guys, just a quick one. I was thinking about our generation and also the past generations since Christ, the church since Christ, the body of believers. And it occurred to me, we have to be so vigilant. We have to be super, super vigilant and on guard and keep our eyes fixed upon Jesus. Because, when you think about it, there's always been temptation, you know, um, all throughout church, since there was such a thing as a believer, such a thing as faith, there's always been also temptation. That's a given, But then I thought about this generation and the world that we're living in, and it's like there's so many avenues for us to be tempted. There's so many ways for the devil to get into your mind and to take your focus away, which weren't there 50 years ago, which weren't like 100 years ago. The temptations weren't there, the avenues weren't there. Like, for one thing, like holiness. I mean, in the last 100 years, like, holiness has gone out the window. And I'm not a Puritan or anything, I'm just saying the way that we dress as a society, the way that our moral standards of what we think is okay. We've got televisions in every room that present images like that in the middle of the day that are like totally inappropriate, but we've been kind of conditioned to think it's normal. I mean, I don't watch TV, but I certainly grew up watching it. And it's like, we're surrounded by the enemy. And if your eyes aren't on Jesus, your eyes are going to fall onto something that's not him. And it's going to be something of a trap from the devil. So, man, it just occurred to me, like, yeah, through all the generations and the great people of faith that have lived on this earth, there's never been a generation that have faced so much challenge. I mean, it sounds silly because people have been massively persecuted, but I'm talking about like subtle warfare where the enemy's in our pocket and we're getting attacked 24/7 because we've got portals. I'm talking about screens forcing information, forcing ideologies, forcing philosophy and different things into our face. And if we're not fixed upon Jesus, yeah, we're gonna be under attack. I mean, we are under attack, but we're gonna, feel it. We're gonna get hit pretty bad. So yeah, I just hit me. So don't give in to the temptation. One other thing I just want to share real quick is in the word it says that never put temptation on God. Like, say that, oh, you've been tempted by God, because God cannot tempt. God doesn't tempt. But several places throughout the Bible, we hear Satan referred to as the tempter. And it just made me think, like, it just put it in black and white. Because we have the scripture that God doesn't tempt. And sometimes when I'm working, I'm just a subtle thing like, I'm doing some work that I need to do. And the thought, I'll get bombarded. This happens a lot. I get bombarded with a thought. And it's nothing bad. It just might be checking the weather or something. Like, it could be as simple as the weather or looking at somewhere I want to go or a video or some music or whatever it might be, but it's a temptation and I feel tempted, and I know if I follow that temptation it will draw me away from what my actual will is, from what I want to do right now. So it will be like succumbing to temptation, even though the temptation in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's being used as a ploy to distract me. Distraction is a temptation. So it just occurred to me, like, wow, no matter what it is that I'm being tempted by, if I'm being tempted, it's not God. And it relates to, in the book of James, in the letter of James, he talks about God doesn't tempt. This is where he says God doesn't tempt, but it's our own evil desire. And if we follow the temptation, eventually it leads to sin, and the sin leads to death, because the wages of sin is death. So it just kind of put it in stark reality that if you're going to follow a temptation, know that it's not God. That's one thing, which means it's the devil. And the other thing is to know that if you follow that temptation, it's going to lead to death. So I just wanted to share that because it kind of polarizes, if that's the right word. It makes it black and white. To kind of see more visibly when you're under attack, or to take more seriously temptation. Because if you're anything like in my generation or just living in this world right now, we're constantly undergoing temptation, because we've been raised up on this sensation of like addiction to notifications and to receiving and, you know, being built up off those things. So I think it's like major, and it just kind of was very sobering that, yeah, we can't play around with this stuff, because it's warfare, it's war. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. So yeah, God bless you guys.